Welcome back to 5 Minute Fantasy Football, presented to you by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Today, we're going to talk about some wide receiver values over on Underdog for best ball. Before we get into our receivers, please go to Underdog Fantasy, download Underdog Fantasy, play some best ball, and use promo code FFSGPN so they know we sent you. So let's look at the projections before we get into our values. To let you know our values, I'm going to look at players that are outside of the top 100 as far as average draft position. Obviously, you want to draft CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, but we're going to look at values and also talk about optimal strategies. One of my favorite parts about Underdog is that they have tons of articles, tons of podcast materials to help give you all the data that they have. And so one thing they've seen, there's a golden rule that you should have 7 receivers you should have 4 to 5 receivers in the first 7 rounds. And that's something that's been consistent through all 4 years of Best Ball Mania. Again, 4 to 5 receivers within the first 7 rounds is the golden rule of best ball. And you see 45 receivers going off in the top 75 picks. So although this is achievable, you have to go and do that. And you look at the running back position. The first 2 years, RB was a good strategy. The last 2 years, RB was a terrible strategy. So again, get your receivers early, 4 to 5 receivers in the first 7 rounds to set yourself up for success. Top projected guys, number 1, CeeDee Lamb, number 2, Tyreek Hill, number 3, Jamar Chase, then Justin Jefferson. Is Jamar Jefferson still a top 5 guy this year? And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, number 5, Puka Nacua, 6, A.J. Brown, 7, Garrett Wilson, 8, Marvin Harrison Jr., 9. Is that too early for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Drake London is at 10, Chris Olave 11, Brandon Ayuk 12. What do you think about that? There's a ton of guys, Brandon Ayuk, you have Nico Collins, Mike Evans, guys that could easily end up in the top 10 that you see. This is a very, very good group. But again, let's look at the receivers and let's look at some of the guys that are projected could possibly be number 1 receivers, but they're being drafted outside the top 100. Currently, Ladd McConkey is going at 68, but Josh Palmer is going at pick 104. And Josh Palmer is a guy that already has rapport with Justin Herbert, who's been established in the offense, and he's been an NFL receiver, and he's been fantasy relevant. Josh Palmer is one of the cheapest number 1 receivers, and you're getting him right now as wide receiver 55. Then you look at Brandon Cooks. Dallas it's been a good offense. Dak Prescott's been good for fantasy football. CeeDee Lamb is there. If CeeDee were to ever go down, Brandon Cooks would get a huge bump. But Brandon Cooks is another guy that he's being drafted outside of the top 100, and he's wide receiver 60. If you're looking for a guy that can give you a little bit of value that you're not having to spend a whole lot on, that could potentially be top 2 on his team in targets on one of the top offenses, Brandon Cooks is your guy. Jahan Dotson. If you look at Matt Harmon's reception perception, this guy wins all over the field. He's been a little bit of bad play calling, bad offense, bad situation for year 2, so he took a little bit of a dip. But this guy is someone I'm definitely willing to invest in. Jahan Dotson is currently going as wide receiver 64, number 133 as far as his draft capital. Then Jalen Polk, he could be the wide receiver 1, projected to be the wide receiver 1 over there for New England. Yes, it's a crappy offense, but we've seen Jacoby Brissett be able to prop up players. Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper. Jalen Polk could be the next guy. You're getting him wide receiver 67 at ADP 143. Another guy I'm interested in. You have Jermaine Burton there if you want a rookie sleeper, wide receiver 69, being picked at 148. Roman Wilson, he's wide receiver 71. Pittsburgh Steelers know how to draft receivers, develop receivers, and he gets to take the spot from Deontay Johnson. Yeah, Van Jefferson's there, but Roman Wilson's the number 2 on this offense, and that is a very solid investment that you're not having a whole bunch, to pay a whole bunch, leaves you a whole lot of room for some return on your investment. All right, well, this is 5-Minute Fantasy Football, fantasy designed for the busy fantasy football player. As always, good luck this season.